Coming up on episode 202 of Wheel Bearings, in the garage, we have the 2021 Acura TLX A-Spec, the brand new 2022 Mercedes-Benz S-Class, the 2022 Kia Carnival. Don't call it a minivan, please. We hear from Honda about the name of their new upcoming EV that will be built by GM. If you're waiting on a new Jeep Grand Cherokee L, you might have to wait just a little bit longer because storage lot near the plant got flooded recently. The Woodward Dream Cruise is back this year, and Volvo has decided to make Luminar's LiDAR standard on its next generation XC90 coming next year. All that and more coming up next. Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. This is Wheel Bearings episode 202. I'm Sam Abu-Al-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
I am Nicole Wakeland, and this week we'll do a shout out to, how about TrueCar?
And I am Roberto Baldwin, and this week I got something from Engadget.
Excellent. All right. Well, Robbie, why don't we start with you? What did you do for Engadget this week?
So I did just like an entry level, boring sort of car. I did the Mercedes-Benz S-Class. I went down to
Just like a Hyundai Accent,
it's
right?
like a Hyundai Accent, the Hyundai Accent of the Mercedes-Benz lineup.
It's a four-door sedan.
It's got 4 doors, it's got 4 wheels, it's got a steering wheel. They're the exact same car.
Super easy to confuse the two.
Super easy to confuse the two. No problem at all. I drove the latest Mercedes S-Class, the 2021, and it is, I guess I'm happy to report, still a Mercedes S-Class. It still brings it, as sort of the pinnacle of the regular car, like luxury sedan. The S-Class is still the top of the heap. I mean, you can go Maybach and talk about Rolls-Royce, and when you go sort of insane, yes, you can get things above the S-Class, but when it really comes down to it, the sort of volume vehicle for luxury is still the S-Class, and it is still really nice, really comfortable. I drove it for 4 or 5 hours from LA down to or up to the Central Coast, and then the next day I drove it back to LA, and the entire time I was very comfortable. I felt like I was being pampered. It is, and this year, or for this model year, they've done, a little bit of a design refresh. It looks a bit more modern, but it doesn't stray too far from what you expect from an S-Class. The interior is very nice. They've actually sort of, I don't know if you want to say cleaned it up or teched it up. I'm not sure where people sit on that. They've added some more technology to the interior. They've changed the orientation of the display from too far away from your hands landscape to much closer to you portrait, so you can actually reach it now, which means you no longer have that little touch wheel, the little touch pad that they had in the center console. That is now gone because you can actually reach the infotainment system. It's got the latest version of MBUX, and it apparently has the latest virtual assistant in there. It's seemed to work fine. Sometimes it's kind of tough when they're like, "Oh, we've made it so it's more natural," and you just keep saying things to it, and then it doesn't. You're like, "Well, wait, how much more natural is this than when I was using it before?" It's difficult to sort of figure out how much more natural it is when you can't really do drives, or at least at this point, or the point I drove the car with like other people in the car. Like you can't have an engineer who will say, "Oh, well, this is how it's more natural," just because we're still sort of slowly moving out of COVID. But overall, yeah, no, it's I drove the S580, and it is very quick. Well, and quick as in it's it's an S-Class quick, but it doesn't pretend to be a sports sedan. It is very happy and very willing to show you that it is a large luxury sedan, and so it drives like that. Even in sport mode, you're not going to get like, sporty steering. It handles well, but you're also going. It's still going to eat. Its main concern is to eat up the bumps, to smooth out the road, to make everything like you're driving on a cloud. And in normal mode, you're driving on a cloud. In, I don't know, Sport Plus mode, you're driving on a jagged cloud, I guess. I don't know. Either way, you're still getting that. You're still getting that float. You can get it with either the 3-liter inline six turbo or the 4-liter V8 bi-turbo. And I drove the bi-turbo. It was powerful. I put the hammer down a few times and it delivered. I don't know. I think most people will be driving these in urban areas, so maybe they're going to go with the inline six. I think it probably works best for most folks. But if you really need to go fast, you can do that. It is not cheap. The S500 starts at about $110,000, and the S580 starts at $116,300. 300,000, yeah, about $116,000. It's a lot of money. It's more money than it's more money than some people pay for their house. So there you go. But it's the S-Class, and it has a 3D display, which I'm sure you're all going to have questions about.
So I'm assuming you're referring to this being equivalent to the price of a doghouse in your neck of the woods, right?
Oh yeah, where I live, you couldn't buy a parking spot for that. But I've seen houses for sale in like other states, like Idaho and Ohio, things with the O's at the end. And I'm always amazed. Like I could buy a house for $40,000, like a stand-up house, or I could buy a house for, $100 and something thousand dollars. We once saw a house on Craigslist for $200 and something thousand dollars in Hawaii. It was on the Big Island. It was really far away from the ocean. It was sort of, and my wife thought it was an error because we've lived up here for so long. She's like, "Well, this has to be wrong." I'm like, "No, no."
That can't be correct.
No, if you kind of look around, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's not, it's not prime real estate. It's sort of, as far away as you can get from the ocean on the island of Hawaii. And she's like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, no, it is, yeah, in the Bay Area, $116,000 will get you
Nothing.
nothing, absolutely nothing. You can't buy
Nothing.
land. You could,
Well, a doghouse.
yeah, you could, but yeah, you could lease a doghouse. Like that could be the
You
down
could
payment.
lease a doghouse.
Lease a doghouse on someone else's land. Like in there's a condo,
Okay.
and then they have that little like maintenance shed on the top of the building. Like you might be able to get in there for that much money. That little, 5x5 maintenance shed.
So I assume that there will also at some point be an AMG version of the S-Class as well.
Oh yeah,
Is that a
They-
reasonable assumption?
that is always, yeah.
So that would
Anything.
be the more sporty one.
Yeah, if you really, really need to go fast in an S-Class for some unknown reason, then there will be an AMG version. Anytime Mercedes-Benz comes out with anything, just bet there's going to be an AMG version. If there's going to be a Mercedes-Benz like wagon for your child, there will be an AMG version of it. Even if it's not powered, they will tune the suspension and I don't know, give you better bearings. Uh, there will be an AMG version of everything Mercedes makes because they know people will buy it.
So I'm curious about the new infotainment system, the new MBUX. One of the things they talked about when they announced the EQS with its 57-inch piece of glass that spans the
Yeah.
entire dash, but it's actually 3 separate displays in there. They talked about this idea of this 0-layer interface. With the idea, with having such a big screen, you can bring all the stuff to the top surface, so you're not digging down through menus to get to different functions. Do they have the same sort of thing in the S-Class infotainment, even though it's a different shape and layout?
I mean, you can you can set the infotainment screen into like 2 different settings. One where you have to swipe left and right, so when you have this like carousel essentially of
Yeah.
features. But if you tap and hold down on the home button, it'll create a grid, which I think is better because sliding left and right is one additional thing you have to do, and you're like, you swipe, you look down, no, that's not it. You swipe, you look down, no, no, missed it again. You swipe, and you're like, oh no, wait, it was on the previous one. You have to swipe back, so you can put it on a grid layer, and then you kind of see everything. You tap on it, and for the most part, I think they're really trying, with the zero layer stuff is on the EQS. I mean, it's pretty cool because it sort of learns everything you're doing. It sort of starts popping, and after about a few weeks of driving, so it's going to be really difficult for any of us to test it because we get a car for a week, and it's not going to learn how we interact with our car in a week. But the idea is that after about 2 weeks or so, it'll oh, every Wednesday you go here, and so it'll start like sort of surfacing these behaviors that you do in order to reduce the amount of time you're going, oh wait, it's Wednesday, I go to this Starbucks to pick up coffee or meet somebody, so it's let me open up the navigation, let me put in the Starbucks, it'll just like, oh, by the way, this is happening. If you have a meeting somewhere or whatever, it sort of starts surfacing what you're doing with your life. This version of MBUX, I think what they're going to do is probably hold off on it from the S-Class until it's out in the EQS, and then it'll come out to the S-Class. I think it's like, the first car that had this was the A-Class, which is sort of crazy to put it on their entry-level vehicle. Yeah, I think it'll eventually permeate throughout the rest of the lineup. And they're really pushing for a lot of voice control when it comes to this, which I am a fan of when it works well. I'm not a fan of it when I have to like do a script where it's like, oh, you didn't say it right, and then it pops up instructions on how to ask for directions while you're driving. I'm like, well, this is not better.
Do you think it ever works well?
Yeah.
Voice control.
It's worked well for me. I think Google, I'm sorry, Android Automotive works well. MBUX has worked well for me. Siri works well for me sometimes. So Apple's Maps. Who else? I'm sure somebody else has a good setting.
I feel like Siri works for me, but 99.9% of the time, whatever OEM, I don't know if it's just my voice, I don't enunciate, I don't speak up enough, but it's forever getting like one of the 5 words that I've spoken. and it's like, and then it's asking me something ridiculous like the nearest ice cream is here. I'm like, that's awesome. I asked for directions to the airport. Like, I just don't know what is happening. It never seems to get it right.
That sounds like the system that Volkswagen has in their vehicles, which is just utterly hopeless.
Oh yeah, it's
back last fall. Rebecca had a VW Atlas, and then I had the Atlas Sport a couple months ago. And it's just completely the embedded voice control is just completely useless. Yeah. I think Rebecca was she did something. She was sitting in front of a post office trying to get it to give her directions to the post office. She was sitting right there, and I mean, it was giving her directions to all kinds of everything but a post office. And I tried it, and it was just utterly worthless.
Yeah, that's me with all of them. So if anyone's really looking to test their voice activated stuff in the car, call me, because if it works for me, it's going to work for anyone.
Well, it's unfortunate, but that you have to go up to the highest tier of automotive, or plug in your phone in order for it to work, because the Volvo system works well because it's Google. I mean, Google's been doing this forever. The Mercedes works well because they want to sell an S-Class based on this technology, so it has to work very well. Even in the A-Class when I was using it, I was able to like add stops along the way and adjust my route all with my voice, which was really nice. And I think they had that available before Google did, which is pretty impressive for an automaker to do anything before a tech company does. But yeah, but then once you leave that, Toyota, Honda, Volkswagen, those are all, I just get angry. I'm like, oh, forget it. There's a lot of, forget it. Because
that's what half the time I don't even try, because I'll start, I'm like, no, I should really try this out. I'll start to try it out. It's like, forget it. It's already making me cranky. And I just, Siri, take me here,
Also, how tall are you?
I am 5'6".
I wonder if it's.
Am I too short, literally?
Because the microphones are typically up.
No.
in
the
the headliner.
headliner.
I wonder if
Maybe
that, like,
that's
it
it.
might be
Maybe
an
it's a
issue as
height
well.
thing that I'm exactly the right height. However, somehow
Like it just
seriously,
misses and bounces.
I mean,
like
you're
the way I
five-
angle my
you're
seat,
you're
it's like
about you're about
bouncing.
average height for a woman.
Yeah, but that shouldn't be an issue though. But it might
I
be.
don't know, but that's a good theory though. What if however I position my seat, somehow my voice is not going up enough and my voice is like
You gotta
ricocheting off the steering wheel and going directly into the floor mats.
Every time you want to issue a command, just look up at the ceiling. Before
I know.
You do it.
I just look like I'm speaking to God.
That's much safer. The whole system much
It
safer. to do
totally
it.
makes it safer than looking at the road. 100%.
Yeah, I
Oh,
as soon as it
absolutely.
pops.
Certainly better than looking at the screen.
That's true. Every time it pops up, it returns any vehicle returns with a script on how I have to ask for like directions. Like,
Oh,
say
yeah.
the state, say the address. So I'm like, nope,
Nope.
no, you've already failed. There's no
You've
reason.
already failed.
Yep.
I'm not going to mention this. I'm not going to talk about this. Or if I am, I'm going to say this is 1990s, late 1990s. I mean, this should not be. It is difficult when it really comes down to it. Like software is super hard. I mean, just ask Volkswagen. Anyone who's driven the ID4 can tell you that software is very hard.
I haven't driven the ID4. I would really like to drive the ID4.
It's a good little car.
They moved my schedule up. I'm getting one on Tuesday.
Yay!
Oh, lucky. I don't even know if we have one. I should inquire.
Well, if you're lucky, by the time it comes, they'll have updated the infotainment system because the infotainment
There we go.
system.
So maybe it's a good thing that I have not driven one
Yeah,
yet.
it is. And it has. How was this voice control? I think it was just so latent, or there was so much latency that I was just like,
Not gonna work.
What about the overall responsiveness of the MBUX? Was that pretty good? You know,
It was good. It was
you
quick. There
Tap
wasn't-
things. It was
Yeah.
responsive.
It's funny because when I tried it out in the pre-production vehicle in LA, like last summer, I don't know, whenever that happened during COVID, I was talking about how it wasn't late. I didn't see any latency, but as soon as I said there wasn't any latency on the video, you can see like there was latency. So I like swipe, I'm like, oh, there's no latency, and it is like, boom, and then it moved over, and I'm like, oh, and so people on
Of
YouTube
course.
were like, oh yeah, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. But using it, no, there wasn't any latency that was any issue. There wasn't any like really, there's always going to be a little bit of latency, especially the way you're touching it, the way you're using it. Sometimes you have if you've been touching the same spot over and over again, maybe your slimy, greasy hands. I have very slimy hands.
Wash your hands, Roberto.
I do. I'm like a salamander. So as you're swiping, sometimes you build up a nice little layer of whatever. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, I didn't see any. They said that they've updated the GPU in there, which is always a good thing, because when you're in the vehicle, and again, it's another it's you're buying an S-Class. You should, you're wanting the best of the best, but also it's a safety issue when when you do something and it frustrates you because it's not moving like it's supposed to. Suddenly you're thinking more about the bad infotainment system than you are about the road. Even if it's just for, a few seconds, it's still, it's not ideal. I will say there was a little bit of stuttering with their AR head-up unit. And it's sort of, I felt like I was sort of nitpicking it, but again, it's an S-Class. So what happens with their...
Yeah, you should be nitpicking it for that cost.
Exactly. So what happens with their augmented reality head-up display, as you come to an intersection or interchange or whatever, arrows fly out of nowhere and they show you where to go. And the animation is not quite as smooth as I would like. Like there's just a tiny bit of stuttering that I think maybe that I feel like, as someone who has a friend who was a Mercedes-Benz master mechanic, they might the stories he's told me about, he's like, yeah, fixing the car is fine. It's finding the squeaks. He's like, people would come in and there'd be a squeak or whatever. He's like, that would kill you because you're like, where the hell is this squeak that I'm looking for? Because people are buying a Mercedes S-Class and they want the best of the best and they're paying a lot of money, and
They want it to be perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a little bit of just a slight bit of stuttering in the animation as the arrows fly out. The sort of cool and like safe, like for me, like great for safety because you don't have to look down at the screen, and it just sort of like, oh, this is where I have to go, especially in a weird interchange, or if you're an American and you have to use a roundabout. Because some cities have roundabouts, you're like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? It'll point you to.
We actually have lots of them around here.
We get more and more every year here in the Bay Area, but people come and visit these, they have some in Santa Cruz, they have some in San Francisco. They get there like, what the hell's happening? What is this insanity?
They put 2 new roundabouts when they built our high school in the small town that I live in New Hampshire, and they thought it was brilliant, and they put these beautiful light posts, like 4 of them, around it on the inside, and no one accounted for the length of the school buses that would be driving through there every morning. Within the span of a week, 3 of them had been taken out by buses. The 4th one they took down. Now there are no lights along me. I'm like, who didn't think it's literally in front of the entrance to the high school? It's like nobody considered how tight that was and the corners and what is wrong with you people? But yeah.
That's, I guess the bus driver lobby isn't as powerful in your small town as
Apparently not, that they didn't have enough input to say, guys, we need a little bit more room than what you've given us to make that turn.
I remember in San Francisco, they were trying to put like some sort of like, not median, but on the side, like little, like extend the sidewalk a bit at corners. And the fire department's like, whoa, 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 whoa. We can't go around that corner if you extend it that far. And they're like, oh. They're like, these fire trucks we just bought? Yeah, we can't. Fire trucks need to get the fire. We're just going to drive right over these. And they're like, oh. And I think they figured something out. I don't know what it was.
Across from the house we used to live in before we moved 4 years ago, they put in they did a road diet on that road. It went from 4 lanes with 2 lanes in each direction to 2 lanes, 1 in each direction with a bike lane on either side and a center left turn lane. And for some reason, they decided to put a pedestrian island in right in front of our next door neighbor's house. So it was like just adjacent to our house, and had big flashing lights. And people wanted to cross the street there. You press the button and the lights flash, and cars are supposed to give right of way. And it within 3 weeks after they put in that island, the first car had already run over the island, knocked down the lights on the island and the signs on the island. Within 6 months, it had been run over at least 5 times. It was about an average of just about once a month. I noticed last week they removed it. They just took it out completely, dug it out, paved over.
They're like, forget it. This isn't working.
No more pedestrian crossing there.
Was there what is it, an engineering issue, or is it just bad driving?
Both? You feel like I think it's both. Yeah, some planning department guy should be like, yeah, so this sounds really cool, but let me tell you what's going to happen if we build this. And that guy didn't work for your city, or he didn't see that before it was built.
In some places, what I see, they have yellow poles, like yellow, like almost like a fence around it, so it's like a bright yellow. Did it have that so you could see?
Yeah. Or they had that. There was 4 bright yellow posts at the 4 corners of the island, and then a utility pole with a very bright flashing light, a sign. So as you're approaching it, it says, basically, stay to the right, no left turn at this intersection, because the left turn lane was occupied by the island, and yet people kept running over the thing. I mean, and it's not like it was in a low visibility area. You could see it come, as you're approaching it from, a quarter mile away in either direction. I don't know. I mean, it's like a magnet. As soon as they put it in there, it was drawing any car that had any steel into it. They must have put a giant electromagnet.
People would turn away and it just sucked them right in.
Now, I feel like the response should have been to put more of those in to get people used to them. Because, okay, we're just going to reduce pedestrian safety because people clearly don't know how to drive in this town.
Yeah. Well, what they did was they actually put in another island 2 blocks away. So, now the accidents are going to happen somewhere else.
They've just shifted outside from in front of that house to a new house.
Yes, exactly.
So confused. They kept like, oh, block. Like if it was on like
Yeah,
a
it's kind of
blind
crazy.
hill or a blind corner, or even within like the first month, because people are used to 4 lanes to 2 lanes. You make changes to a major thoroughfare,
Right, everyone
then
gets confused.
people get confused. They would put like random stop signs up in my hometown when I was a little kid, and all of a sudden you just see cars like, oh god, people just sliding through intersections because there was a stop sign where there wasn't one before. But just like, hey, here's a bright visible thing, people are like, huh, what's that? Crash. Like moths to a flame.
Yep. All right. Oh, I did have one other question for you about the S-Class.
Yes.
The driver assist features. When they announced it last fall, particularly for Europe, they talked a lot about having level 3 partial automation, having a LiDAR sensor and all the other sensors on there, and being able to do hands-free driving with it. Is any of that stuff coming to the U.S. market version of the S-Class?
I am not sure. I will probably have a better idea of that probably later this summer, though. I'm thinking. I'm guessing. They're
Okay.
probably gonna, because I feel like they they might be in the same boat as Audi was when Audi did with their they had their level 3 traffic pro thingy, and they were getting ready to do it, and then they realized, oh wait, no one, no one's gonna let us do this. So I think it's probably easier for automakers, especially the German automakers, to sort of roll something out in their home country. The German automakers, a lot of German, like the state of Germany, the country of Germany owns stakes in all these soy and these some of these firms.
Yeah, well, and there is a regulation now in Europe for level 3 automation that's being
Yeah,
implemented.
so they have a
So
framework.
it's going to be legal over there.
Where here
Yeah.
it's a patchwork of insanity. When you're looking at, you have 50 states, which means you have 50 rules about what's going to happen. And so, um, I don't know. We'll see how I really think it's going to come out in Europe, and then maybe, they're probably lobbying right now with U.S. regulators to sort of figure something out, in order to get it over here, and at least in some areas, and maybe geo-fenced. Whereas if it's legal in
Yeah.
Nevada, where everything's legal, you can use it there, but it's not legal in California, or it's not legal in Arizona or Utah. And so when you pull into the state, like right before you get there, like it's like,
You would
hey,
have to know.
I'm
Yeah.
turning off your cool stuff. Sorry.
Wah, wah.
Contact your local representative in order to.
Wouldn't that be the best way to get people to realize they need to ask their powers that be to make something legal? It's like every time I drove over the border, it tells me I can't use fill in the blank. Well, call your senator.
Yeah, call your local senator. Contact NHTSA. They're almost completely worthless, but contact them anyway.
Yeah.
NHTSA shade. That's what people
Um,
come to listen to.
All right, Nicole, what were you driving?
I was driving something significantly more affordable than what Roberto was driving. I had the 2022 Kia Carnival, which is all new, and it is not a minivan. It is technically a what are they calling it? Multi-purpose vehicle, MPV, I think is what they're calling it. Because minivan, like we talked about a while ago, like wagon is a bad word. So, but essentially it's a minivan. But it does, on
Just
the
like when
outside.
Mazda did their first minivan. They literally called it the MPV
Yeah.
So,
back in the 90s.
see? So it's like they're trying to pretend it's something it's not. And I get it, marketing matters, but that's basically what it is. But styling wise, and all the minivans are kind of doing this, it has a very SUV look. Like if you were to look at the side of it, if you didn't see that little track that goes along, the cargo area for that door to slide, it looks like an SUV. Same thing from the front and the back. It has very SUV styling. So it's a good looking vehicle. Power, it's a 3.5 liter V6 with 290 horsepower. So it moves, it's a heavy, it's not a lightweight vehicle, but it's more than capable of getting up to highway speeds, and it does it quietly. It has a nice little 8-speed automatic in there. And it gets decent fuel economy. It's supposed to get a combined 22 mpg. I took it on a long weekend up into the White Mountains, so a lot of highway driving. But then once you get there, you're driving in these twisty, turny, up and down, steep, sort of mountain roads any place that you go. So it has to work. I averaged after the weekend 24 mpg, which I didn't think was too bad because that beat their combined. Like go Kia, their number wasn't way off. I thought that was pretty good. And it was also with me, my husband, my daughter, and all of our stuff to go away for the weekend. And when we were driving around up there, it was the vehicle of choice because it was between that and something that was a little bit more tight for all of us. So there were 6 of us riding around in that the whole weekend. So it wasn't like it wasn't loaded up with stuffs. So it was fun to drive. I liked it. It's beautiful inside. And that's the thing, like a minivan is not about being this powerful beast of a vehicle. You're not trying to win races. You're not trying to impress anyone at a stoplight. You're trying to have something that does the job of carrying around your family and your friends and their stuff in a way that's comfortable, whether it's just tooling around town or you're going on a road trip. That's why you buy one of these. And the Carnival does it. It also has, and this was something they have, well, 2 things. Cargo wise, it's got tons of cargo room, but it depends on the trim you get. So they have these fancy second row seats called VIP lounge seating. And it is, yeah, right? Doesn't it sound really cool? It's very cool. So they're sliding, reclining seats, and they also have like a little footrest that pops up. So basically you have your lazy boy in the second row of your Kia Carnival, and they're unbelievably comfortable. Like literally my daughter sat back there. She's like, what do these seats do? I'm like, push a button. She's like, oh, I'm taking the second row. And normally she tries to call shotgun. She's like, no. I'm sitting in the second row. So they're really comfy. The drawback is that you have to take them out if you like, there's no way to remove them. Like you can't just like, fold them down or whatever. They are there. If you want to use that second row cargo room, tough luck. So you've only...
They're not removable at all?
I was trying, honestly, Sam, I was trying to figure out if they're removable at all, and I couldn't find something to remove them. But when you look even online, like they list the specs for this one only has, like it's cargo first row, cargo second row, cargo third row. Nope, only to second row when you look up the cargo in this, which makes me think I wasn't missing something. I mean, somebody from Kia, feel free to correct me if I missed it. Oh, that's not fair. Roberto has his doggo on the screen, and I'm totally distracted by a cute little German Shepherd. But so you can't. So if you want that, that minivan length, you don't really have it. So we overcame that. I wanted to bring a curio cabinet to the dump, and we folded it all the way flat, and like the curio went over the top of the seat, and then so we kind of finagled it. But that's the drawback, that you don't. If the cargo thing is like you want to all the time be thinking, oh, I want the second row. No, I don't want the second row. I want cargo. These seats, this package, which is the SX Prestige, it's literally the tippity top trim of the lineup. Think twice before you do that. This is really more for somebody who's like, my priority is people, and just need the cargo space behind the second row.
So it's more like a real SUV in that respect then, because real SUVs, you can't take out the second row seats.
Right. Yeah. So again, it's not calling itself a minivan, it's calling itself a multi-purpose vehicle. So there you go. You can't, I mean, if you get there's 4 trims, I want to say altogether. So if you don't go with the SX Prestige, if you even just step down to the SX, it changes. And then you can, then you're, okay, you have 145.1 cubic feet of cargo room behind the first row. So yeah, that's something to consider. But the seats, they are so comfy. Like I'd be willing to say, forget it. I'll find somebody else to haul my stuff to the dump because I want those second row seats. They're brilliant. They're unbelievably comfortable. They make that car feel like a luxury vehicle. Like I know kids will just think they're cool, whatever. But like adults, I think my brother-in-law fell asleep for the 10-minute ride to Starbucks the one morning. He's just lounging back there, And pricing wise, it's a Kia. So Kia always packs a lot of stuff into a vehicle for a shockingly low price point. So the SX Prestige that I had, which is the top of the line, which had those fancy seats, which has quilted leather trims, it has a 12.3-inch infotainment screen. I mean, it's lacking for nothing, is $46,100.
Wow.
I mean, it's not like it's cheap. It's not bargain basement for what you're getting. It sure as heck is cheap. You know?
Well,
Yeah, that's a couple of grand less than the Sienna that I talked about last time. And while it doesn't have a hybrid powertrain, it's got a lot of stuff that you can't get in the Toyota, like those VIP seats.
The VIP seats. And if you step down one level, the SX, which loses those seats, it's 41.1. So even and I think the cheapest one, the LX, the base is 32. So even if you're getting the most base version of this, which you get a smaller infotainment screen, your trims aren't as fancy and stuff, but you're still getting a good looking vehicle. And then you can have seating for up to 8 because it's only obviously 2 seats when you do the VIP seating as opposed to a bench seat that you can get in some of the other trims. So I liked it. I liked it a lot. Everything was nice. The infotainment screen was super easy to use. Driving it was a lot of fun. I mean, like I said, I drove it. It was like 2 hours plus to get to where we were going. So I was just in it for 2 hours, and the way back, 2 hours of, end of weekend traffic coming down from the White Mountains in New Hampshire. So it was not fun driving because it's slow and stopping. It's really comfortable and really easy to drive. So as a family vehicle, if you want a fully featured family vehicle that does exactly what that is supposed to mean. It holds your family. It has 9 million cup holders. It's comfortable. It's roomy. The Carnival is a good choice. I was quite a fan.
So let me ask you this. If you had to choose Telluride or Carnival, which one would you go for?
Oh.
Okay, it depends who I am. Can I say it that way? So the sliding doors are, if you've got small kids, sliding doors are the best thing that have ever been invented in the history of vehicles because it's just so easy to get a squirming toddler in the seat when you can slide the door open and fully lean into the car. You don't have to, open the door, prop the door, open it with your hand, pull it open, try to sit yourself in there, wedge yourself in, get your toddler in the seat. It's a pain when a child does not want to sit in their seat to work in anything that has a door that swings open. If you have kids that are a little bit older or that's not an issue, you don't care, go ahead and get the Telluride. If you want something where you've got little kids all the time and you want them to be able to get in and get out, you want to be able to strap them in if they're young enough that you have to do that, I would go with the Carnival. How's that? So it depends what mom I am, at what mom age, what my kids are, what age they are. That would determine which one I'd go with. Stage in life, yes.
I'm curious how I wish you had the Telluride and the Carnival at the same time so you could test because I know we talked about having to be a contortionist to get into that third row. So you could test how much of a contortion you have to be to get into the third row of each vehicle.
Of the Telluride, it wasn't that bad. I should preface it. The person who went into the back row the first time was my niece, and she's a gymnast, so I guess that's not fair.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
But my sister-in-law climbed back there too, and she's my age. She's a mom. And Susan had no problem getting back there. And there's enough space. The VIP seats, they just don't slide front and back. They also do that left-right thing, so you can pull them apart a little bit so the space in the middle is bigger, or kind of push them both to the left a little or both to the right a little bit. So you can pick where you want the little extra bit of space to be. So we split it in the middle, and they just walked right down the middle. But it didn't seem like either one of them was having to be a contortionist to get back there. But now I need to tell you,
one other, one other aspect of one other thing that might make be a factor in your decision would be all-wheel drive, because I think the Carnival is front-wheel drive only, right?
The Carnival is front-wheel drive only. So if you're living someplace, that's another consideration. If you're living someplace where you want all-wheel drive, then the Carnival is out. So that would be a lot of, snow belt folks. That's a lot of you. But
not necessarily. A lot of snow belt people, think they need all-wheel drive, but the reality is, they don't.
Well, isn't the big thing if you really look,
set of tires?
Yeah, I was gonna say the tires. The thing, it's I've tested a million vehicles with. And, I live in New England, we get lots of snow, and occasionally I get tires. And the first time I ever drove a car, I had snow tires on cars when I was a kid, because you had snow tires and you had regular tires. You swapped them every year, come heck or high water, or your car went everywhere. And then you have all seasons, and I never paid attention to it much. And then I drove on snow tires again for the first time. And I thought, oh my God, this is entirely different. They make such an amazing difference in the snow. So if you're just looking for a little extra traction and you really like a car and it's front wheel drive, you can get that if you get a decent pair of snow tires. What you don't, it's not as good as having snow tires and all-wheel drive. It's the all-wheel drive will get you out of some stuff that you just are not going to get out of in a front-wheel drive vehicle. But a decent pair of snow tires goes a long way to making any vehicle very snow-worthy. I drive a Dodge Charger, for crying out loud. It's rear-wheel drive. I put snow tires on it, I'm fine.
See, tires are amazing now.
Yep.
They're
Tires
magic.
are amazing. This like boring black pieces of rubber, but the technology and how they work is actually pretty weirdly fascinating.
I know. I mean, the rubber compounds, the difference it makes, depending on the temperature, the road temperature. I mean, that's the big thing about winter tires. It's not just the design of the tread blocks, but it's also the rubber compound.
Yes. They'll show you those
all-season
things.
tires and summer tires get really hard when it gets below 40 degrees.
I did a thing with, God, I'm not going to say the tire company because I'm drawing a blank. I want to say it was Michelin, but they had you driving on an ice rink and they had to show so they could stage it and have it cold and have you see how just all seasons handled versus winter tires. And they had this little thing that they gave us as a demo, and it was like a little, like 6 inches long, and it had 3 pieces of rubber, and there was just a winter tire, a summer tire, and an all-season tire, and they'd have them sitting in the rink, so they were all cold. And when you could actually feel how very much different each of these 3 rubbers reacted to that cold, and just how hard the summer tires got, you're like, oh, they're not really just saying this. There's a significant difference in how each of these tires behave. So there really is some tech there that makes, if you want winter tack, go for a winter tire. Really, it's a pain in the butt to have to change the tires every spring and every fall, but it does make a significant difference. It's huge performance difference in your car in the winter.
Yeah, you're gonna
Absolutely.
be so much happier, especially if you have to commute every day, and if you have to get up early in the morning when you're going under an overpass, and all of a sudden it's icy. When the first time you're on summer tires, and suddenly your car gets sideways because you're at at an underpass, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I should have got those winter tires.
Well, I had one time I got a vehicle that should have been great in the winter, right? And we normally get everything either has all seasons or snow tires here during the winter months. We don't get tires that are summer tires. And I don't generally look to make sure. I do now because I got a car that had summer tires in January. And I went out and it was snowing and I'm like, what the heck is happening? Like I turned the wheel. I'm in my neighborhood. I'm going 15 miles an hour. The wheel is literally turned and I'm just still going straight. I'm like, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. I was literally perplexed. I got to where I was going for breakfast and it suddenly clicked. I'm like, wait a minute. I wiped the snow that is totally coating the tires off. I'm on summer tires. When I got home, I parked it. I'm like, guys, I cannot drive this. It's literally not safe. I'm going to wrap this car around a tree because it just goes. It wasn't the car. It was literally the tires. That was what the difference was.
They give us a lot, even in the winter. They give me summer tires sometimes. And so once I was like, oh, I'm going to go up to Tahoe. It was like January, February, and then right before I was supposed to meet like my cousin up there to go snowboarding, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'll take this car instead of my car. And I was like, oh, hold on, let me go look at the tires, summer tires. I was like, nope,
Don't do it.
Nope.
Yeah. The first time I ever had a Mini for a review car back in about 2008, it was, I got it in December and they sent it to me with summer tires on it. And it was fine for the first couple of days and then it snowed. It got cold and it snowed. And there's a hill in my neighborhood and trying to go up that hill. I was going up this little hill, slowing down. Finally halfway up, it comes to a stop. Would not go another inch up the hill.
I'm done.
It just started. So I had to back all the way back down the hill and go back around a different way to get home.
Yeah.
Because I just had no grip.
Yeah.
It was completely useless.
Which also, when you have to back up, you're like, okay, what's going to happen? Because you're like, okay, I got to like really be, I got to be real careful.
Are you backing up or are you just like,
Were you
sliding
engine
sideways
braking?
down a hill?
Was it an automatic or a manual?
I had an automatic when I was in my horrible experience.
I think it was a manual.
Okay, so that helps a little bit. So you can do a little
Yeah,
engine
it was
braking to keep from sort of
Yeah.
locking up by like just looking at the brake and then sliding into the neighbor's yard.
Don't look at me. Ah!
Yeah, as a former engineer that spent long winters working on ABS and stability control systems in places like International Falls, Minnesota, and Arvidsjaur, Sweden. I'm quite familiar with with what happens to tires when they get very cold.
It's not good. It's just not good.
And you get out on a on a 1,500 foot long sheet of ice on a frozen lake, and you hit the brakes and you just glide all the way to the other end of the
That's
ice
like, it's
sheet
not even
until,
like you're not,
until you
it's
hit
not
some
even
snow.
like this crazy out of control thing. You just hit the brakes, the car's like, nope, and will just continue
No.
in a straight line until you
We're
scrub
still-
off all that speed. It's like, no, I'm going to stop in about 40 feet. Have fun.
We're still going this way, yo. You're like, oh, okay.
Yep.
Good times. Tires. Get good tires.
Tires.
All right.
Yeah, get good tires.
Even all
Absolutely.
seasons
That's
will be
most
make you
most
happier.
important. No, doesn't matter what kind of powertrain you have, with electric or gas or diesel. Tires are probably the single most important component of your car in terms of how it handles and rides and its overall safety. Smartphones have gotten way more expensive over the past decade, and all it takes is one impact on a hard floor to make you wish you had spent a few bucks to put a case on it. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone, and it only costs a few dollars a month. Nicole, Robbie, and I travel a lot for our work, and we spend a lot of time in hotels, coffee shops, airplanes, and of course the Delta Sky Club. Connecting to the Wi-Fi in any public places with shared Wi-Fi puts your data at risk because bad actors could be intercepting what you send and using it to steal from you. It only takes some cheap hardware to intercept Wi-Fi data, and even a smart preteen can do it. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per victim selling personal information on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops the bad guys by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN uses state-of-the-art encryption that would take a supercomputer up to 1 billion years to crack. I have ExpressVPN on all my devices, including a MacBook Pro, Windows laptops and desktops, and Android and iOS phones and laptops, or tablets. When I want to be secure, I just launch the app, click once to connect, and my data is secure. As I said, I travel a lot for my work, and I have to connect to countless public Wi-Fi networks in many countries. I have ExpressVPN on all my connected devices so that whoever else is on the same network can't see any of my data. That's important because I often have to check banks, credit card accounts, and transmit client data that might be sensitive, as well as filing articles on news that might be under embargo. ExpressVPN protects all of it, and I've been paying for my own account for years. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings, and you can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. All right, I had the Acura TLX A-Spec, which is kind of the middle of the lineup. It's the best of the mainstream models. It's not quite the Type S, but I really like it a lot. When they launched the A-Spec version of the previous gen TLX, it made a huge difference in the way the car drove. Its steering was better, its handling was better. So when they launched the new TLX last year, they had an A-Spec from day one, and in this case, instead of a V6 like the old TLX A-Spec had, it's got the 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, which is basically it's the same engine that you'll find in the RDX. And it's essentially a slightly detuned version of the engine from the Civic Type R. So it's 272 horsepower, and I believe about 300 or so foot-pounds of torque. And it's a fantastic engine. I definitely recommend that you just put the car in sport mode and leave it there instead of in eco mode, because in eco mode you will feel some noticeable delay when you step on the accelerator pedal. It was actually kind of surprising. It was much more reluctant to take off. But in sport mode and even in normal mode, it's very, very responsive when you step on it.
I was just about to ask him, how many modes do you have? Is it just normal, eco, and sport?
Just
Or
three.
Okay, just
Yeah,
curious
it's just
what
the
your
three
options
modes.
were. Okay.
And within sport, I think there's some individual settings that you can, you can customize it, for, a little bit tighter steering, or heavier steering, a little less steering assist, and throttle response and things like that. One of the things I've long really liked about Acuras, ever since the first time I drove an RL way back when, is the super handling all-wheel drive system. So this was one of the first all-wheel drive systems with torque vectoring, and it's got electronically controlled clutches in the rear axle that will send the torque to one side or the other, when you're cornering, to help the car turn in and help it go where it is you're pointing it. And the first time I ever tried it actually was on a track, and it was amazing how much better it made the car feel. So much more neutral, it just goes exactly where you point it. And has plenty of grip. A lot of fun to drive, and the system is still fantastic even now. It's still one of the best systems out there. One of the interesting things I noticed on this that I hadn't noticed, that it's been a while since I drove a newer Acura, particularly the RDX. Probably 2 years since I drove that. And that was the first one that had their touchpad system, that is a touchpad with absolute positioning. So we've talked about this, I think, when you had or when you drove the Type S a few weeks ago, Robbie. Instead of picking up your finger and swiping across the touchpad to get around, basically wherever you put your finger down on the touchpad, that's where the selection is on the screen. And it takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, it works really well. But that functionality actually only works if you're in the native embedded infotainment system. So if you're in one of the Acura screens, it works that way. If you plug in either an iPhone or an Android phone and use CarPlay or Android Auto, the functionality of the touchpad actually reverts back to the traditional functionality. So you don't actually get that absolute positioning on the touchpad, which I thought was really strange. When I drove the RDX a couple of years ago, they hadn't yet implemented at launch. They didn't have the CarPlay and Android Auto software working yet. So I only used it with the standard infotainment, and so this was the first time I tried it this way. And so it, going back and forth those two modes, if I was in the native infotainment interface or Android Auto, it worked very differently, and it took me a little while to get used to that. And it's definitely not as good with the kind of traditional, pick up your finger and swipe to get around. This is why the Lexus touchpad system was terrible. For the same reason. It's not a good interface to use in a car, and hopefully Acura will address that and make that work properly when you're using a smartphone projection system. The EPA fuel economy rating on the RDX or the TLX A-Spec is 24 miles per gallon combined. I got about 21 because I was driving it as an A-Spec should be driven. Still getting 21 that way was pretty good. Let's see what else. Bottom line price $47,775, which is not cheap, but it's for this type of car, and this new TLX. I think the design of it is really well executed. They move the base of the A pillars back. The proportions of the car look more like a traditional rear-wheel drive architecture, even though it is a transverse front-wheel drive. So it's got kind of a long hood. The cabin is kind of set back. And compare it to something like a BMW or a Mercedes. I guess this would be like an E-Class size. It's got great proportions, and I really like the new design language on the Acuras.
No, I think it looks really good. I've never not been a fan of the Acura styling. I think that looks good, but I think they made this one look a little bit sportier, a little bit more attractive. It's so easy for cars like this to go one of two ways. You made them so sporty that suddenly they look like they're trying to attack the track, and that's not the car they were made for. Like they're so aggressive, you're afraid of it in the parking lot. Or it goes the other direction. It's like, I am so mild-mannered and sleek, you will not even notice me. And they did a good job with this one. I think the styling is really slick on this. I think it looks good. I like it I in all trim levels. I was looking at the Type S too, and like, oh gosh, those look good. They look really good.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to some news of the week. And let's start off with stick with Honda for a moment. Honda earlier this year, I think, or maybe it was late last year, but at some point recently, Honda and GM announced a deal where GM would build a pair of battery electric vehicles for Honda. Honda, as you know, has been very focused on fuel cells. They've never been a big fan of batteries. They've done a bunch of hybrids, but the only battery electric vehicle that they've sold was the Fit EV, which was a conversion of the second generation Fit. And I believe they only leased those, and they only leased, I don't know, maybe about 2,000 of them. And it was a relatively short range EV. So this is going to be their first purpose-built EV. And it's going to be called the Prologue. It's going to be a crossover built by GM. Honda's doing the body design and interior and suspension tuning. But GM's going to build it using their Ultium platform. So it's going to be just like a Hummer EV underneath. I believe it's going to have 1,000 horsepower and 3 motors. No, I'm just joking.
Might weigh slightly more, even possibly.
20,000 pounds.
Could be 10,000 pounds.
20 million pounds.
But they're calling it the Prologue because this is kind of the beginning of Honda's journey to electric. In the second half of the decade, they plan to launch their own new dedicated EV platform. So it's going to be it's called the E architecture. That's probably we'll start seeing those vehicles in 2026, 27. The Prologue is launching in early 2024 as a 2024 model, and there's also going to be an Acura built on the same platform, both crossovers. And Honda has said by 2030 they want to be selling 40% of their sales should be zero emissions, 80% by 2035, and 100% by 2040. They want to completely eliminate internal combustion by 2040.
I actually like their numbers better than what some OEMs say. I don't know about the 100% by 2040, but some of them are like, in 2 years, we'll have no gas powertrains. I'm like, I think you guys are getting a little ahead of yourselves there. I like that they're 40% by 2030. Sure, we can hit that.
Yeah, we could maybe, sure.
We could do that. 40, I feel like that's fair. I'm like, that is a reasonable number, Honda. You go.
You just have to build them. That's really what it comes down to. They have to actually
details, Roberto. Details.
Build it, and people will just automatically buy them, right?
That's how that works, right? Whether people want EVs or not, you're just going to buy them when there's no choice. That's what everyone's going to buy.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe that is the way it works.
That's how it works.
So the other thing that Dave, why can't I remember his last name now?
Oh, did we forget about the Clarity? The Clarity EV? Because it was such an easy car to forget about.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Did we forget about it? Did we forget?
It was a whole lineup of cars that didn't have very good range, but were really nice inside and weren't really pretty on the outside.
Well, the fuel cell one had good range. You could go 300 miles in the fuel cell Clarity.
In the Bay Area. I could go 300 miles around my house.
Just in a circle.
In a circle. Whee!
Well, you could drive from the Bay Area to LA. There's a hydrogen station.
Is there any place there are hydrogen fueling stations?
There is, but hydrogen stations go offline for whatever reason, like pretty regularly. So I wouldn't trust. That's
Do
why
they really? Are they unreliable?
They sort of just go offline. And you're like, oh, Okay, which is likely why Honda and Toyota both offered up like 14 or 21 days of free car rentals,
For
per
when you
year.
can't fuel up.
Yeah, so if you wanted to go on a trip, you could get like I guess a CRV or Toyota's me a RAV4 or a Camry or whatever. So because yeah, and there at one point there was a hydrogen there was a shortage, and so you just couldn't get hydrogen.
So what the heck do you even do?
Yeah.
I guess that's
They
like when
they
all
would
the
get
gas ran out in Texas.
You,
they were
you,
giving out cars. They were like, oh, here you go, you can rent this instead. Free rentals, free car rentals. So like whatever I guess whatever dealer stock was available, they're like,
Like,
I don't
have
know.
this one.
Yeah. So yeah, it's yeah.
fortunately, there weren't that many customers to deal with. So
Yeah, the 12
they
people
haven't
were like,
sold
I was to say all
hey.
6 of them had the free car of some other one for the
I mean,
week.
for what it's worth, Toyota did sell, I think about almost 7,000 of the first generation Mirai in California, and I think Honda and Hyundai have sold a couple of thousand of theirs. So I mean, it's not a lot, but I mean, there's some out there. But the battery EV version of the Clarity was pretty bad. It had a very small battery and only had an 85-mile range, which was
They
unless you're only using it just to commute around town, it's pretty
they
useless.
they told me that it was they for instead of focusing on range, they were focusing on interior luxury.
Did it have a
Yeah,
luxurious interior?
It was not. It was like Acura level
yeah,
interior ish.
Okay.
It was
yeah.
like between Acura and Honda. It was squishy. It was nice and
It
comfy.
was squishy. Is that the measure of luxury? How
Yeah,
squishy
you're like,
is
oh,
the interior?
it was like a
You
lazy
squish.
boy
I mean,
At a
recliner.
level of 1
when
to 10, if
when
it's
you
a 10
press
squish, it's
when you press a
luxury.
surface, does it yeah? If
It's
it
Okay,
squishes
all
when you
right.
press a surface,
like
The
your
then
finger
squish
gets
test.
stuck and you
more
got to pull it out
luxurious.
and it makes that sound.
So during a briefing the other day, Dave Gardner, the executive VP of Honda of America, did say that while they're moving towards this all electric future, they are going to significantly ramp up their hybrid offerings as well. And, I guess right now, first half of this year, about 7% of Honda sales are hybrids, and they've got hybrids in the Insight and in the CRV right now, and so they plan to add hybrids across most of their most of their product lineup over the next couple of years, and want to get that up to about 25 to 30% of sales being hybrids in the next few years. Which given where Toyota's been going, that's not a bad strategy. As far as the Prologue goes, he said that they expect the sales volume for the Prologue to fall somewhere between the Passport and the Pilot. And the Passport sells about 40,000 units a year. Pilot's about 140,000. So that's your range. Somewhere in between though,
That's
there
a
is where they expect
100,000 car
the
range.
Prologue to be.
Okay.
Somewhere between these two cars.
So it could be 41,000.
If they can sell 50,000 Prologues, that's not bad. That's a start. It's
That's
a
a
good
good
start.
number.
That's more than Chevrolet's ever sold Bolts in a year. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Chevy's never sold more than about 25,000 Bolts in a year.
Is that really what the number is for the
So,
Bolt?
we'll
Oh
see.
my gosh.
They also never
Yeah.
talk about the Bolt after it was initially launched. They had us all drive it like 16 times, and then you never heard from them about the Bolt again because they were sort of focusing on fleet sales. They were just like,
Yeah.
shh.
Yeah.
So, all right. Next up, Jeep. If you were planning to get a Grand Cherokee L, and you were hoping to get it fairly soon, you might have to wait a little bit longer. We had some heavy rains here in southeast Michigan over the last few days, and there was flooding in quite a number of areas, including apparently a marshaling yard not far from Jeep's Jefferson North Assembly Plant in Detroit, where a whole bunch of Grand Cherokees, existing Grand Cherokees, Grand Cherokee L's, and assorted other vehicles were parked. They were pretty much up to the door handles in water in many cases. So I think a bunch of those vehicles are probably going to end up getting scrapped or refurbished and sold as used or something, sent to auction. So you may you may have to wait a little bit longer if you were expecting an excuse me, an early delivery of a Grand Cherokee L.
There's pictures and it's just a flood of water and all you see are like rooftops sticking out. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that's painful. They just built those. But
Yeah, that always sucks when that happens. Also, for those that are into classic cars and traffic jams, the Woodward Dream Cruise is coming back this year.
oh my God, that's me. I'm into both of those things.
You like driving it?
Have either of you ever attended the Dream Cruise?
No, I've always wanted to, and I have never attended. But one of these days, I will.
I live too far away.
Yeah.
It's basically about a 10-mile long traffic jam on a Saturday, from early in the morning until evening, just a parking lot of all kinds of classic and interesting and unusual, unique cars. We've seen all kinds of strange stuff there. I generally don't go to it because I don't like traffic jams. I can usually see a lot of those cars at various other places, and sitting on the side of Woodward Avenue is not my cup of tea. But for those that enjoy the Dream Cruise, it was canceled last year for obvious reasons, but it's back. Ford is sponsoring it this year, and Stellantis already announced that they're going to be bringing back their what do they call it? Their drag strip nights. I forget. They set up a 1/8 mile drag strip.
Is it roadkill nights?
Somewhere. Roadkill nights. That's
there
it. That's what I was looking for. They're bringing back roadkill nights and doing some drag racing up somewhere around the northern end of Woodward Avenue towards Pontiac. So if you're into that, it's coming back in August. And Pebble Beach will be going on, I believe, the same weekend. That's always one of the things about the Dream Cruise. Depending on your taste in cars, you could either go to Pebble Beach and see the really expensive stuff, or go to the Dream Cruise and see the other stuff.
You decide which end of the spectrum you want to. Which would you go to? If you could pick, Roberto, which one would you go to? You could go Pebble or Woodward, only one.
Okay, so I've been to Pebble a bunch of times. I don't want to get stuck in traffic, and I can just walk around Pebble. Also, when I'm at Pebble, I get to drive like weird cars. I don't think I'm gonna. People would let me drive their old car.
So,
Because
I don't know. You'd have to ask. Maybe you get say, "Hey, buddy, can I drive your car?" Sure. You look nice.
Who the
Here's
hell
the
are
keys.
you? I'm that guy.
But at Pebble Beach, would you ever see an amphicar or like an old 1960s Mini with an Integra Type R engine mounted in the rear?
Yeah.
Oh, see, that's
you?
the thing, is that you're not going to see like the weird cars at Pebble Beach.
Or the Blues Brothers, the Bluesmobile.
Oh, well, now you tell me the Bluesmobile is going to be there. To hell with Pebble Beach. Does it still need a new cigarette lighter?
Probably.
That's a point.
Yes, I believe so.
Throws it out
Yes.
the window. Yeah, sorry.
I really want to see. If I had to pick, I would pick Woodward just because I like all the fancy cars, but I'm not a fan of walking around and just looking at like, oh, there's a $2 million limited edition one made, and this one has whatever. It's cool. Okay, move on. I want to see I love to see car. I love the more real cars that more regular people are driving, and when they're like, I decided to do this freaky weird thing to my car, I'm like, you go do you. I think that's cool. I like seeing that kind of stuff.
Okay, I'm changing my
there's
answer.
plenty of one-offs at Woodward.
Yeah, I'm going to change my answer because I've seen all the Porsches and all the old Ferraris I ever need to see. I've been to Pebble Beach enough times where I'm like, all right, I saw this one last year. Oh, look,
See?
there's another Hudson. Okay, cool.
Fancy
Awesome.
cars are cool. Fancy cars are fancy. They're beautiful. They're amazing. You're afraid to walk too close because if, I don't know, the edge of your watch touches the paint and you scratch it, you just cost that person $2.5 million. I'd be afraid walking around at Pebble Beach. I would be afraid walking around at Woodward.
I have to. You want to hear a fun story? If you cover the actual, if you're a journalist and you go to the actual concourse, you have to have a $1 million umbrella. Yeah, you have to have a $1 million umbrella
policy?
liability policy. So
Are
every
you
year,
in case you accidentally bonk one of
yeah,
those cars
while
with
I'm
your
walking
like,
around with
camera
the camera or whatever, you don't need it to like cover everything else, but in order to get to it and get like the press pass, you have to show off
Wow.
a 1 million. So every year, whenever I would do it, when I was at Engadget, I would have to tell my EIC, who would then find the insurance person, and then they would print out a piece of paper or they'd send me a PDF and I would send it over to them and then
Wow.
yeah, no,
See,
it's no joke.
it's so my
It's
my
a huge
fear
pain in the
of
ass, and I
my
probably
fear
won't
of
do it
like
this year.
accidentally scratching paint or doing something to a car is not unwarranted, because for them to make you carry that means some idiot journalist like me has managed to do that and cost some guy several $1 million to fix the paint job in the Ferrari you've seen now 3 years in a row.
I think they do it just to keep the sort of the
The riffraff?
influence and the
Keep the riffraff
riffraff
out.
and the riffraff who are there. They're like, well, we don't really trust you. Like everyone else there is very fancy compared to me. Like instead of taco stands, they have like caviar stands. So yeah,
I take the tacos. See, that's the wrong of it.
my
I mean,
thing.
I want to
I-
see
yeah,
a couple
the taco.
sometime, but
I would absolutely
taco
take the
stand,
taco stands.
caviar,
Yeah,
I
who
would
wants-
take the taco stand.
taco
Taco.
stand every time.
Oh, speaking of taco stands,
Ooh.
one thing we forgot to mention on the last
Are we
episode.
talking about tacos now?
the-
Yum. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, we neglected to mention that when we arrived in Austin for the Bronco drive, they took us to a place in Austin called Fair Market, and they had
yeah.
a taco truck or taco trailer there. They had the
did.
most amazing brisket tacos.
Oh,
They
it
were
was so
fantastic.
good. Yes.
Any
So if you're ever in Austin, look
What
for
was it
Taco
called?
Bronco and get the
Taco-
brisket tacos.
It was really good.
Taco Bronco.
any drive program that includes tacos is the best drive. There was a Porsche Cayenne drive program up in Northern California a few years ago, and for lunch we had tacos, and I'm still talking about it. I don't remember what I had on an Audi drive. It was probably like some fancy sandwich or steak or whatever. I don't care.
Okay,
But,
the last
yeah,
the
tacos.
last food I can really remember is at the Toyota Palooza they had in Plano. There's a place called Hutchins Barbecue that catered the event at the track, and it was so good I ordered the barbecue and got it at home, and we ate it last weekend, and it was amazing. So Hutchins Barbecue, go online, order that stuff. That stuff's amazing. So there you go, food tips and car information.
Excellent. We've got it all covered.
We have it all covered.
All right. So one last news item that I added on here after we started recording that I remembered. I had a visit earlier this week. I believe it's the first visit I've ever had from a billionaire, Austin Russell from from Volvo, or from Luminar. Stopped by with one of their vehicles with their LiDAR sensors on there, and got some information about a big announcement that came out from Luminar and Volvo. Last year, Volvo announced that on the next generation XC90 that launches in 2022, it's going to feature some sort of automated driving system that Mr. Russell is describing as a level 4 system. We'll see if it actually qualifies for that. But they would be using Luminar LiDAR. And then this week they actually announced that hardware is actually going to be installed as standard equipment on every vehicle with their new SPA2 platform, starting with the XC90. So what they're doing is they're kind of following the pattern of Tesla, where they install all the hardware for autopilot on every vehicle, and then eventually they take some of it away from you. But they
Is that what they plan to do at Volvo? Good to know.
the new Volvos are going to have a full suite of sensors and compute, including Luminar LiDAR, cameras, radar, and all powered by an NVIDIA Orin based computer, and that's got like 200 trillion operations per second from that chip. And then the base versions will have kind of a level 2 driver assist functionality, like hands-free driving on the highway. And then optional, with an over-the-air software update, you can get what they're calling a level 4 system. I still haven't had a chance to talk to Volvo about it to find out what's really going on there. But basically, when you get to level 4, now you're talking hands off, eyes off, brain off. According to Austin, you can take a nap while you're using this while driving on the highway.
But Austin might
We'll
say
see
you can
about
take
that.
a nap, but will the TSA and everybody else say you can take a nap? Not TSA, and it's whatever government agency it is. I'm just going to pick one.
Yeah,
Will they say that
we
it's
don't know.
okay? to that's the kicker, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we don't know, but they're definitely going to have standard lidar on all the vehicles they build. So that's kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
It is,
Yeah.
and to
All
be
right.
honest, when it comes to trusting ADAS systems in level 4, um, Volvo has a pretty good track record with safety. That's kind of their jam. So if they're like, yeah, we're gonna do
Yeah.
it, and you're like,
It's kind of their
oh,
jam.
maybe I
Our
can.
jam is safety.
Our
That's our
jam is
thing.
safety.
It's our jam.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting things is Volvo was the first automaker to actually come out and announce that when they release automated driving systems, when the system is in automated mode, they are taking complete responsibility, complete liability for anything that happens. So
Right.
if you're using this automated mode and there's a crash or something goes wrong, Volvo is accepting liability for that.
Which is a
You know,
huge
they're
step.
not saying
Has anybody else
they're not
even
saying that,
said
that the driver is responsible.
Has anyone else made that kind of commitment to, we have that kind of faith in our system that if it doesn't work right, we're going to say, oops, our bad?
I don't think.
I mean, every
so.
automaker, with one exception that I've talked to, has basically said that off the record. I don't think
Yeah, but
anybody
it's
has
the on the record
publicly
part. They all tell
stated
you
that.
behind. So
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
else. So just, okay, go
Yeah.
Volvo.
Yeah.
I believe they're the only ones so far, but they're also the only ones so far that are going to, that have said that they're putting such a system on sale for consumers. So this is not a robo-taxi. This is going to be automated highway driving. So it's not even city driving. So we'll see. I don't know, but I mean, Volvo has definitely said that they're going to take responsibility for it. All right, let's wrap it up with some listener questions. First one up from Speedmaster. Have you heard of anything the size of a Ford Maverick coming from any manufacturer that might have a real four-wheel drive system, either part-time with a transfer case or maybe a Torsen or similar center diff? Have either of you heard of anything? I mean, the only other similar vehicle I know of that's been announced is the Santa Cruz, and it
Yeah,
doesn't. It's just
That's the only
an
thing I
all-wheel
can
drive.
think of is Santa Cruz. So
Maybe they'll
I'm
make
gonna
a
say-
baby gladiator. Wouldn't that be nice? Like a little tiny gladiator? I would.
Yeah,
be,
well,
I would be into
there's
that.
been
I mean,
speculation
that's not
that
going to happen,
Stellantis
but
was going to do a small. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's been speculation for a while that Stellantis would launch a small, a compact pickup for Ram, and if and when they do, it'll probably share a platform with Jeeps. So I wouldn't be surprised if they offer, such a system on a small Ram pickup or a small Jeep pickup if that's what they brand it as.
Aren't they the only ones that,
and
I'm
then-
just trying to think, they're the only ones who don't have something that size. Like everybody has a wee truck except for Ram, right? All the truck people.
No, right now there's just the Maverick and the Santa Cruz. I mean, GM doesn't have
Okay.
anything.
yeah.
Nobody else is offering a smaller
Everything
truck
is-
like that right now.
Not
Everything
that
else
small,
is a
but I mean,
step
there's
up.
like sort of, yeah, that's true. They are all a step up.
Like,
That's
yeah,
true.
the Ridgeline, the Tacoma.
I'm trying to make like the
Ranger.
Tacoma the same size, but you're right. It's not. The Maverick's smaller.
Yeah, no, it's quite a bit larger. I wouldn't be surprised. The Maverick is on Ford's C2 platform, which is also used for the Bronco Sport, which does have a quote unquote proper four-wheel drive system. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they offer that four-wheel drive system, in maybe something like a Maverick Raptor, or a Maverick. Well, what they call what was the Ranger that I drove a couple weeks ago?
Tremor.
Tremor. Yeah, Maverick Tremor. So maybe they'll do a Maverick Tremor with a four-wheel drive from the Bronco Sport.
I like Maverick
it's
Raptor.
certainly doable.
That sounds cool.
I think so. Yeah, Raptor sounds way better than Tremor. Tremor's just
Yeah,
a thing
Maverick
that
Tremor-
happens after an earthquake. Like, oh, we're having some tremor, some aftershock. Tremor.
Maverick Raptor. That's like, that is after you run. I
Yeah.
like that better.
Yeah, it's a clever girl.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Another one from Speedmaster. What's the horizon look like for battery technology improvements? Any chance we could be close to doubling or tripling the battery energy density? It seems like that's the big roadblock at this point. So I've actually, as it happens, I've been working on a project for my day job on this very topic for a client. there's a lot of companies that are working on solid state batteries, which they claim will, double the energy density. I don't think we'll get to tripling anytime in the foreseeable future, unless somebody comes up with some magic new chemistry. But I think it's reasonable that by the end of this decade, by later in this decade, we will have some solid state batteries that do double the energy density. And when you double the energy density, now you have the option of you can keep the same range as you had before. And, so if it's 250 miles or 300 miles, keep that range, but you can make the battery half the size and half the weight. And so, that makes it more efficient. It also reduces the cost, makes it easier to package. Or you can, keep the same physical battery size and double the range. So, that stuff's coming. GM is working with a company called SES in Massachusetts that they're building a pilot production facility that they plan to be building prototype cells in 2023. Ford and BMW are both investors in a company called Solid Power that has cells. And they're actually going to have cells that Ford is going to be testing in vehicles next year in 2022. And of course, there's QuantumScape, which has Volkswagen as its big partner, and they're also making some big claims for their solid state cells. So that's kind of the next big thing on the horizon, but probably not until after 2025.
Yeah, I mean, Toyota and Samsung are both working on something, and what's nice is that you get that, you can get that smaller battery because of the density, but it also charges quicker. So you're feeling, well, I can get 250 miles of range, but now I can charge in like 5 minutes, like I do my car. I mean, that's the dream.
Yeah.
So,
that's more exciting than the range because just to get it to be able to, I want EVs to be like just gassing up your car. Boom, you go in, you fuel up, and you're gone. That's what I want. It's
lighter, so you're hitting everything about the dream of solid state is a wonderful dream, and I felt like it's always been 5 years away, but recently it feels like the 5 years
always
is actually
5.
It's always been 5 years away.
Is it really 5 from today? Should I start counting from this
kind
day?
of 5 years from, but I feel like now because so many
5 to 10.
5 to 10.
See already Sam's like 5 to 10. So another 5 years ago. It's 5 years now.
Yeah, there's.
I've been following this stuff long enough to know never to count on it actually being 5 years.
It's only 5 years away, Sam.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like there's enough
it's like fuel
people like with big deep pockets are actually being like, oh, you know what? If we really want to make battery electric more exciting to the person who doesn't live in California or the person who actually does have to do those long drives, which again is not a lot of people, but as Americans, we always think we're going to go on a 400, 500 mile road trip, which most of us actually don't do very often. But for peace of mind, or at all, really. So, but for peace of mind, which is something that we really enjoy here in this country, you really got to have something that says, hey, you get 300 miles of range out of this car. Oh, by the way, you can just go to the place like you would when you're gassing up your regular car. You can just go there, plug it in, go inside, get a big gulp, get some beef jerky, get back out in your car, and you're good to go. And that's when people would be like, oh, okay. Yeah, this is cool. Dope. I'm down.
Yeah, that is, one of the big promises of solid state, and we'll see if that happens. And solid state cells should also be safer, and that's one of the reasons why you can charge it faster. Because one of the problems with existing batteries is in between the electrodes and the cells, it's all filled in with an electrolyte material. It's a chemical compound that contains oxygen, and if you get a short circuit in the battery, if two of the electrodes touch and it starts to heat up, and what happens is you heat up that electrolyte and it actually gives off oxygen. So when you have a grease fire in your stove, or even a gas car that crashes and catches fire, you can smother that flame, just put a lid over it or smother it with foam or water or whatever, and it'll go out because you're starving the fire of oxygen. But with a battery, if a fire starts, or with current batteries, if a fire starts, it's actually, even once you smother it, it's still generating oxygen internally from the electrolyte and feeding it. That's why it sometimes takes 4 or 6 hours to extinguish a battery fire instead of 5 minutes. So, with solid state batteries, you get rid of that liquid electrolyte material that's got oxygen in it. It's all literally solid, hence the name. And so it can't do that. It won't have a fire that can go on indefinitely like that.
Yeah, no, solid state's that's the I don't want to say magic bullet, but
It's kind of magic.
it's kind of magic. Yeah, it is kind of magic. The issue right now is that they only last like 5 charges. They don't allow 100 charges or 150
Yeah,
charges.
that's
Their
That's why they're
longevity
only
is
kind of magic.
that's
Yeah.
one of the
that's one
that's
of like
one
a-
of the issues.
Yeah.
They're also really hard to make.
yeah. We can make
All
them.
All right, one more from Adam this time. Just something of note. In a lot of ways, Forza has replaced car magazines for young kids. My 12-year-old enjoys the visuals and learning about the tech in cars. When I was his age, I had subscriptions to 4 car mags. Bonus, Forza doesn't appear to demean women. That's actually a really interesting point. What do you guys think about driving
No,
games being the new replacement for
I don't
car
think
magazines?
they're new. I think it's been around for a long time. Gran Turismo, I think most of my friends learned about Skylines because of Gran Turismo. They learned about the STI. They learned about all these cars that they could unlock in this video game from the late 90s, and then they became very interested in them. I worked with guys who are younger than me, for a lot of my time. But when they were like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get this car," and I'm like, "Oh, how'd you learn about this car?" Because usually, Car and Driver or Motor Week or whatever, they're like, "Oh, it was in the video game," and then you sort of like understand and learn about the driving dynamics of the vehicle from the video game. And so I think it's kind of been around for a while. I know a guy who got an STI because of Gran Turismo in the late 90s.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it isn't new. I think kids have been getting into cars that way for years now. I think adults get into cars that way, playing that, and suddenly they're seeing things. You don't have to be a kid. You're just an adult. You play that game. You're like, what is that? Suddenly, now it's on your wish list. I think that's replaced car magazines for a lot of people and a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good thing. I think they're good. I like video games though. I think they're good things. And I think games like that are fun because they share stuff that's real, like real car. Those are real cars. They aren't, you're learning something that's a real thing. And I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a PS4, and so I haven't played Forza, but Gran Turismo, you can go in and tweak the suspension settings. There's all kinds of stuff you can change in there and change the behavior of the car. And they actually do a remarkably good job of modeling the physics of the cars, and so you can really feel the difference in the behavior of the car. When you go in and change spring rates, change the roll center, change the stabilizer bars, change the brake balance. All this stuff is it's really cool. I personally I like Gran Turismo because I prefer a game where I'm racing on the track rather than an open worlds game, or at least like Forza Horizons. They've got a couple of different versions of Forza, but it gives me an opportunity to play around on the track with a lot of different kinds of cars that I wouldn't normally get to drive. And I like the point that Adam makes about not demeaning women. I think it is all these games are quite neutral in that respect. It's not, they're not really geared to male or female. It's anybody that wants to play. You don't see people in scantily clad or anything like that. It's about the cars and about the driving.
Yeah.
Yep, I would agree.
I think the Miata I think is a good example. I think the Miata was for a long time was sort of like it was pigeonholed as a car for women or a car for gay men, and that's and you read some automobile magazines in the 90s, and that's what they were like sort of pigeonholing it as. And then these kids were all playing this game. They're like, oh man, the Miata is really cool, and it's sort of like now you have A-Spec Miatas driving around courses nonstop. Like that's the go-to car. The answer is Miata.
Well, and it gives them
Miata is always the answer.
Miata is always the answer. But the games give you the cars they're just the cars. You've got the car. What you do with it, what you make of it, what you decide you think about it, or what it means to you is all based on just how you play it, how you change settings, how you adjust things. There's no, like you said, Roberto, there's no journalist, there's no one portraying it as, well, this car is for. Nope. If you like this in the game, if you think it looks cool and you one day want to drive this, then it is the car for you. It removes that idea that you've been told the only person who can drive this is fill in the blank, which is a good thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I look back on a lot of the car magazines and some of the stories, and you read some of this stuff from the 90s, even the early 2000s, you're like, oh my God, this is cringy. Who allowed this? And and to be honest, there's still some of those people out there who still write like that, and I am concerned that they're just.
But there's fewer and fewer people.
There are
like
fewer
that.
and fewer.
Every year, I think the number of people who do that kind of thing and the number of readers who accept that kind of thing is
it's
people
shrinking.
don't want that.
Yeah,
it's shrinking.
Yeah, because it's like, wait, for me, my mom's the person who taught me how to drive fast. My dad's the person who taught me how to fix cars. So it was like the idea that like, oh well, one of my favorite magazines in the 90s was Sport Compact Car. Sport Compact Car, it was always interviewing dudes with pictures of scantily clad women.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We're moving away from that, and if you're playing Forza, that's not even a thing.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's all we've got for this week. Any last thoughts?
I can't wait for next week. I have a fun car next week.
Oh.
I have a fun
It's a teaser.
Yeah.
She's going to tease us with
teaser.
the fun car.
It's
I want to.
fun. It makes your Mercedes look like meh.
I'm going to amend my Bronco Sport tirade from the last.
What? I liked the tirade.
Okay, so I'm just gonna quickly say there have been a few cars that I've driven over the years that I've gotten so excited about, or I've had such high expectations of, that when I get in them, I'm slightly disappointed. The Supra. I know no one should be disappointed in the Supra. Supra's a great car. The first time I drove it, the first hour I was like, eh. And then I drove it for a little bit longer, and I'm like, oh, this car's great. It's the same. I think the Bronco Sport. I think I got so sort of wrapped up in the hype of the Bronco. And I'm not a fan of the steering, but I think everything else, it's fine. It's a pretty car.
Oh, come on. I saw one on the highway the other day. I'm like, oh, there's the car that Roberto hates. And
I don't
now I can't
hate
think
it.
that.
I just hate the steering. So I am.
So there's the car that Roberto hates the steering on.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, I'll think that.
And
next
you know,
time. All right,
I'm just
I'll
gonna,
amend it.
in my review, when I do my video review of it, I'm essentially just gonna tell everybody, get the bigger engine, and drive it around the block a few times. Do a lot of cornering. If it's fine for you, it'll be fine. It is, yeah. Also, it hit me in the head a couple times with the with the tailgate. The tailgate's at the perfect height where it hits me right in the head, where I can't see it. So I feel like it was.
Yeah, well, if you weren't 8 feet tall.
I feel like it was attacking me. I feel like the car might have been attacking me.
It was mad at you. Smack.
So
it could sense your attitude towards the
It
steering.
could feel the
taking
anger.
it out on you.
yeah. That the steering just, I don't know why. Anyway, yeah. So it is not as horrible as I made it out to be.
Okay.
Unless you are just you nitpick about steering, then maybe just go drive around a corner.
Then it's horrible. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And on that note, we'll see you next time.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.